My name is Erik, and I am a multidisciplinary artist. I primarily specialize in painting and ceramic. The last 4 years I've lived in Oʻahu to obtain my master's degree from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and I was fortunate enough to also get a teaching job at the university, and soon after that I was able to get a job teaching ceramics at Leeward and Leeward Community College. Speaking primarily to my experience at University of Hawaii, that was an absolute necessity for my education, but then also how to create a full body of artwork. I consider myself to have what I like to call art ADD, and I am fascinated by a lot of different materials. So when I started getting into art education, doing the BFA program and then the MFA program, it really helped me to kind of hone in what I'm doing and create a full cohesive body of work. And it took me some time to learn the importance of stepping back from the work and letting it inform you. Also doing a lot of reading and researching that also helps to define that work and influence. So the university did an excellent job of helping me through that learning process. And then also community is huge for me. Being a fish out of water. Military for me, you know, the biggest positive from that was community, making all those friendships with people from all around the world that you would probably never have done. Me being a Northwest kid, coming to an island where I knew nobody, going through that program really helped enrich my experience because it was just an automatic brotherhood of friends that are going through the program with you, and they have an expansive network of teachers and other artists. So I can't speak enough about how important that role was in myself as an artist. My entry into the art world kind of came late in life. It wasn't until my 30s that I actually pursued it. But you know, my birth mom, she died at a very, very young age. She was an artist, and so that really, like, seeing some of her artwork, that was really, really important when I was younger because it got me into drawing. But you know, I mean, it was mainly my favorite Disney and comic book characters, and I never really pursued it after that. But you know, and then I went to school 3 different times, dropped out 3 different times. I joined the military. So that really, really got to me after a while. And I was trying to seek out something that captivated me and kept that interest, because I would do these career choices and then I would just lose out on that interest and then move on to something else. So it wasn't until my 30s, my sister actually was an au pair in France, in a little city called Angers. And so my family and I went all over the place. We rented a car and drove all over France and down into Spain. And we went, of course, to Paris. So I was, you know, witnessing a lot of art, especially at the Louvre. And then one of the most epic experiences of my life, especially as an artist, was going to Barcelona, and we witnessed the Sagrada Familia by Antoni Gaudi, and unbelievable. And I'll never forget just being so fueled up and so inspired. I remember it was actually outside of the Sagrada Familia. I told my dad that I was like, "This is it, man. I want to be an artist," and he was supportive of it. So. It was that moment. I came back, I signed up for a BFA, and here I am now. Curiosity is just deeply rooted in my personality. It was my mentors growing up. I looked up to my dad a lot. He was a tradesman. He had a plethora of skill sets, other people, artist friends, same thing. Carl Johnson was a huge mentor of mine. And I grew up around these guys, and seeing this you know, multitude of different skill sets and talents, I think just was really embedded in my personality, and And so I always strive to learn new things and new skill sets. And then so taking that into my art practice, I think that was one of those things where, you know, ideas always come to me first. And then I start to think, okay, how best do I communicate this idea and which medium do I use for that? And I always felt that the more knowledge and the more skill sets, the more mediums that I'm acquiring helps me to better communicate that idea and have that many more options to effectively communicate it. Ceramics is a material that is so versatile. There's so much sculpturally that keeps me interested. It helps me to channel that curiosity. And working in two very different mediums, I mean, you're working in a two-dimensional flat surface, and then with sculpture, I'm working three-dimensionally, of course. So there's a level of alchemy that's involved. So I'm always learning. Whenever I'm practicing or I'm around other ceramic artists, it's a material that completely consumes me, it fascinates me, so it's always pulling that interest. And then anytime that the beautiful relationship that I have with 2D and 3D is I might hit a wall in working sculpturally, and then it's a great practice for me to then shift and work two-dimensionally without losing that motivation and that healthy appetite for curiosity. And then also, as I'm working both, I mean, oftentimes it's a little bit here and then I switch over to 2D, switch back to 3D. So constantly working back and forth. They're always in relationship to each other and they're always informing each other. And I find so far that it's been a really healthy process for me in the studio. If I witness a piece of art, first and foremost, that first initial reaction is like, oh wow, like something's gotta just captivate me and pull me in. And then I call them nuggets. You know, as you come in closer and you start to inspect that work, there's something more, right? That's my bread and butter. I love that moment, that micro scale. For me personally, whenever I go and I see art, you know, conceptually, of course, that's a really important thing. That always brings my interest in. And it's this level of discovery that I think, for me, always intrigues me and keeps my interest. So I like to keep that into my creative process because if it doesn't make you want to ask questions and especially leave that painting or that sculpture asking more questions, I think I've done a disservice to that viewer. So that level, that dichotomy between micro and macro, always really important to me. And then also a meditative practice for me too. That small, a lot of the work that I do was inspired by an artist named Dorothy Napangardi. And I had first seen her work at the Seattle Art Museum, and she's an Aboriginal artist, and her work blew me away. A lot of the dot technique really made her work feel alive and energetic, and there was a buzz that you would get witnessing that artwork. And so that just hit me, and it's work that's always stood out to me. And so I liked to take little things from artists and kind of adopt that into my practice and kind of riff off of it. Hawaii has made a tremendous impact on me. It's beautiful, it's sunny all the time. I'm from the Northwest, so being out here, I feel energized and I'm just more motivated and want to make work. I think mainly through a lot of the ceramic forms that I like to make. I'm very much into organic forms, especially being a freediver now. So going out and seeing these seascapes and seeing the natural formations that are happening like in coral, and all these symbiotic relationships between a lot of the sea life has really kind of embedded into my psyche. And so whenever I'm creating forms now through ceramics, oftentimes I'm kind of riffing off of that and reading and researching a lot of the sea forms that are specific to Oʻahu and finding ways to incorporate that into the work. I'm teaching at 3 different campuses, so I'm always on the road traveling to all these different schools, and those always present new and unique challenges as well, because you're working with different communities and different environments, different students from all kinds of walks of life. So it's tough. You go through a lot of sacrifices, as I'm sure most artists all know about. You're exhausted by the end of the day. So then to try to shift gears from that and then all of a sudden try to get motivated to make work, there's days where that's easy, and then there's days where that's really, really difficult. But there is nothing more fulfilling, and being able to go through that creative process and have students be able to witness the work, and then also giving them more in-depth ideas about the creative process, gives them context. So when they see something and they go, wow, this inspires me, I want to do this, now they're getting context for how that was done, and maybe a path that could reflect one of their own. I would probably reiterate the same advice that was given to me by a family artist mentor, Carl Johnson. Keep grinding. You gotta develop that work ethic and just keep going. There's gonna be all kinds of things that are gonna get in your way, road bumps along the way, but as long as you keep coming back and making work, things just tend to fall in place. So that's my best advice, is to just keep grinding and don't falter. There's always time. You might have to make that time, and if you can do that and keep at it, consistency is everything, you're gonna notice that things will fall in place. You're gonna progress as an artist, watching yourself grow. That is an experience that is irreplaceable. That's one of the most beautiful things that I've experienced as an artist, is to watch that growth and then to be able to share that with others. Going through the academic institution, right, you're in that community of artists, and then when you leave that, you're kind of in this awkward void, and so you have to be very proactive to get that sense of community and going to art events and collaborating with other artists, etc. And so here, right, we had a studio space, the gallery, for the entire summer to work on these projects. We would get to know these other artists on a much deeper, more intimate level, and then also just being inspired by the level of work. I mean, there's incredible artists in this show, and who have a whole lot more experience and knowledge than I do. So them being able to bestow that on me and to see their creative process, and we riff off of each other, is absolutely huge. So, and then also the challenge, this very large scale, almost, mural scale, took me, a second to kind of get comfortable with. So this was a challenge for me that I think that pushed me out of my comfort zone. And so I think that's also a very vital aspect of being an artist, is always pushing yourself and getting outside of that comfort zone. So being able to do all of those things throughout this experience really, I think, has shaped me as an artist. In just this one summer, I feel much more inspired and stronger as an artist coming through this. This painting is very much near and dear to my heart because, My Monumental Summer, I thought long and hard, like, okay, what is a monumental summer that I've experienced? And it was a pretty recent one, and it was moving out to Hawaii. It's my first summer out here. And prior to that, I had lived in the Northwest in a tiny house out in the middle of the woods. And that level of isolation living out there was rough enough. And so I'll never forget the moment that inspired this painting. I had gone out for a walk out in on a trail, and sun was just coming up, and there was this field, and sun came up and started shining through the pine trees and just illuminated this field that was just full of newly sprouted wildflowers. And I'll just never forget that feeling of just being overwhelmed by these natural colors in nature. And then just this emotional reaction that I had where I was like, oh my God, like summer's right around the corner. I see a light at the end of the tunnel. I needed to get out from the living situation that I was in, and Oʻahu was just right around the corner. And I knew that that was gonna be the best change for me in my life. And so that moment, I wanted to reflect that. And so that's why I'm hoping to title this piece Wildflowers After a Harsh Winter. And those were the things that I was trying to channel. A lot of the color palette. I wanted it to be vibrant, and bold, and impactful. And then I was also playing with this idea of wet, heat, right? Because summertime for me in the Northwest, and especially out here, equals swimming, right? Going to the lake, going to the ocean. Heat, which again, coming away from winter is really, really important. So, you know, those were some of the things that I wanted to kind of play around with that idea of this painting. Working with Boz and Kate and Kris, they're all muralists, and getting to know them a little bit better and to understand their process, it inspired me. I would love to get into doing murals around here in Oʻahu, and I knew that working on this scale would probably make me a little bit more comfortable in that dynamic, but also being a realist, muralist, you know, they're working out in the elements, shorter time frames, so I think it would have to really transform my approach to those projects. But absolutely, this work has definitely transformed my idea and my approaches to some future work, and you know, some motivations to want to get out there and see what I can do with mural projects. Time management. That's huge, and you know, again, it being a new challenge to me working in this scale, I love type, I love control, I love gradients. I mean, a lot of the artwork that I was looking at when I made this work was graffiti art, right? Pop art, pop surrealism, and all of those tend to be a lot more graphic and illustrative. So vibrant colors, big thick lines, and you know, if I've got a shaky hand trying to create these big, long, bold lines was definitely difficult. So there was all kinds of new challenges that really presented themselves in the work as it started to evolve that I didn't necessarily plan for. And so for me to, you know, kind of have these realizations as the summer was unfolding, I had to shift around and make sure that I was dedicating myself, that I knew that I put my heart and soul into this work. I didn't want to leave this experience feeling like I could have done better. So I definitely put in a lot more hours than I thought that I was going to in this, making decisions towards the end where I'm introducing a lot of the pattern work that you see a lot in the backgrounds. Those decisions, sometimes I remember thinking to myself, why did I make this decision? But pulled it off, and I think that it turned out pretty well. So, you know, it was a lengthy process, but I'm very glad with how it turned out. Through this creative process, you know, there's moments where I step back and I witness the work and let it inform me, but I noticed that there was kind of a buzz. It charges me, so I hope that there's a level of stimulation, right? I want them to have that wow moment. I want them to come up to the work and like I said, ask questions. So if they come in and they look at the work and not only does it grab them, but it holds them, that's always important to me. And then if they can leave, you know, asking a couple of questions and leave thinking about the work later, I think that's a success. My name is Erik, and this is My Monumental Summer.